Okay. So thank you, Lindsey, for taking the time to come meet with me on behalf of Jesuit Dallas. And so your title, you're with Lindsey Miller, Public Relations, and also co-founder of the PR Collaborative. And so how are you doing today?
Great, great. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So I'm going to run through some questions just about yourself. And so first question, how did you get started in your business?
Well, kind of a long story short, in college, I went to TCU and I needed an internship for my degree and ended up getting a non-paid internship with Henry S. Miller as their director of marketing. Back in the day, it was called Henry S. Miller Interest, and they owned several shopping centers. And so I went to go work at the Highland Park Village. Then I graduated from college, and my dream job at the time was to be their director of marketing. I got a phone call out of the blue that their current director of marketing, who I'd internshiped under, was leaving. And she said I should come in and interview. And I did. And I got the job at a very early age, probably had a bigger title than I should have. But I went in there and I did the job. And I used to speak to college students in entrepreneur classes early on. And I said, I really did a lot of faking it till I make it kind of thing. I asked a lot of questions. I watched how others in this career did what they did, and kind of learned as I went, but had an innate sense of what I needed to do, I think, and that really helped quite a bit. Fast forward to a few years after that, I was ready to leave the company. I was getting, well, I had a young baby at home, first of all, and I knew that I could only reach a certain amount of, or tapped out top salary at a certain level there, and I wasn't going to be able to go much further than that. And at the time, the tenants in the village were asking me to do some PR work on the side on the weekends and at night. So I was really busting my butt and working quite a bit of hours just, to make some extra money. And I thought, you know what, I can leave here, start my own company and make 3 times what I'm making right now. And so it took me about 6 months, and it was around August of 1999 that I left the company and I started Lindsey Miller PR, and the rest is history.
That's great. I'm actually interested in entrepreneurship myself, so this is interesting to hear other people how they start their companies and everything. So that's fantastic. So second question. So I understand you're in the kind of the restaurant industry for public relations.
Right.
So how long have you been with the restaurant industry?
Well, that started, it was really back in, it was around 2008. We were going through a recession. And a lot of different, I don't know. I wasn't interested in what I was in the trades that I was working in at the time. A lot of fashion, a lot of retail, some catering companies. And I always referred out the restaurant ones that would come to me. And frankly, Dallas dining back then was not more than maybe, steakhouses or, it was just a whole different scene. It wasn't really, I mean, the celebrity chefs back then were Dean Fearing, Kent Rathbun, and Stephen Piles. And there wasn't really much more than that. There wasn't really this unique farm to table aspect that had been all around the country. So it didn't really speak to me. And then around 2008, my husband called me and said, hey, you need to meet with my friend who is starting this restaurant called Bolsa. Sorry, someone's clicking in here. Right. And I'm like, oh, I don't want to do that, And he was like, no, trust me, go meet with him, talk to them about it. So this guy had started this restaurant, and it was farm to table, and it was called Bolsa. And we sat there, what was supposed to be an hour meeting. We sat there for 6 hours in his office. And by the time I left, I'd gone through an entire DNA meeting with him and realized that I wanted to be a part of whatever this was, because I knew it was going to really change our city. And at the time when I was feeling really down and out about my industry and not really wanting to be in PR ever again, and just I needed something to really cling on to and believe in, this was it. So I ended up doing this ridiculously long, 16-page proposal that I never needed to do, but I did it. Yep. And won it over all the older PR firms that have been around and really were established in that industry at the time. They've all since, they're out of the business or dead because they were so much older than me, and I was a kid, or not a kid, but I was a lot younger than I am right now. But anyway, so I started doing their PR, and the first year we made GQ magazine's top 25 restaurants in America. Food and Wine acknowledged us, Gourmet magazine, Bon Appetit, and it just catapulted my career in the restaurant business. And then from there on, different operators and different chefs were calling, and it really shifted to a chef-driven city, with a very different mindset than what we had before with the big corporate steakhouses or the big celebrity chefs that were just, that were the iconic and still iconic, very important history of our Dallas dining. But it shifted to this younger, really creative, very different, cool industry. And so it was great. I was on the leading edge of that. And my husband, who owns a small boutique real estate company called Stablemate Group, also started a couple years prior to me, specializing in the restaurant industry as well. So it was fun to kind of shift gears at the same time.
Yeah. Okay. Well, another more recent kind of events, the past year for us, how has COVID affected your business?
Well, we were driving to Colorado March 12th for our regular spring break trip, and literally turned back around. I was on the phone and the laptop the entire time, about 30 hours. It was a quiet panic is kind of how I remember feeling. I remember thinking that I needed to be the calm in the storm. Restaurant owners didn't really know what was about to come, didn't understand it. None of us understood it. This is the first time this has ever happened. We've gone through recessions. We've gone through wars. This was a completely different unknown thing that we all thought, oh my God, it's about to take us all under. Yep. So and I can't stand this word pivot because it's overused at this point, but we pivoted literally overnight, and, proactively had meetings with every single one of our restaurant clients and said, all right, we're going to put X, Y, Z into action. Maybe our traditional way of doing PR is not going to work right now. So we're going to do a little bit more marketing, and we're going to shift. Let's talk about what you're doing internally. How do we shift from teaching the diner, instead of going to you and sitting in your restaurant, to go delivery, pickup, and also still spending money in your restaurant. So I was thinking, my career was over. It was a very, very, very scary time. And here we are, 8-9 months later, it did decrease, money-wise, because we had to charge a little bit less. Mm-hmm. But most of our clients kept us on. I would say actually all of them kept us on except one, and we ended up working pro bono for them. And because we did so well, they all ended up raising their fees back up to what they would have paid pre-COVID. And the one that didn't pay for many, many months was so happy with the results that they ended up making a big lump sum payment for what they technically owed. And so our restaurants have actually done really, really, really well. Right. Today, in fact, I think this is a pretty interesting thing, is that two of them, my husband's looking for real estate for them. They called and said, all right, we're ready to expand. And both of them independently told him, the only reason we are able to do this is because of what your wife has done for us. They kept us afloat, but we also had record sales. So I think that's pretty amazing.
It really is. Yep. Well, pivot is kind of an overused word, but it's really a great use of the word, because none of us expected this whole pandemic to last this long, and it's still lasting. Obviously, it's going to be going into 2021, unfortunately, but that's what a lot of companies and businesses had to do, is just pivot and kind of change their techniques, I guess, of how they're going to do things.
Yep.
So another question, what is a typical day like for you?
Well, a typical day. Well, I get up around 5:45, 6, drop off my youngest 16-year-old at tennis. Then I get back to work, and my 17-year-old works from or is at home, full on, online schooling. The
So,
sophomore is every day at school, so it's a little bit different because he has a tennis career also in the middle of all this. But then we have daily Zoom calls with our team. I have great girls that work underneath me. I could not have done it without them. So we do that. That's about an hour, hour and a half altogether. And then we're right into pitching or, Zoom calls with our clients. And I like to say a typical day in PR is very atypical. Just expect for anything to happen. And you have to multitask. You have to be doing a lot of things at once. Always be ready for surprise and always be ready for crisis communications, frankly. So it's exciting, but it's a lot of mental work.
yeah, I can imagine. Yeah. Okay. So who is your role model personally and why?
Good question. I've been asked that recently by a magazine that covered me in an article for DCEO, and that was a really, really hard question. But I think I would say, like I told them, my husband's grandmother, Juanita Miller, she passed away many years ago. But she really taught me a lot about how to be a strong woman and to not ever be apologetic about that. And also to have a career, but balance life and home and to go for it.
It's great advice. Truly, I think my mom is a good role model in my life. And she kind of, when she was a couple of years ago, she had her job going on and she had to balance her personal life and her job. And it's difficult to do, but she managed and she did a great job. So, what is the coolest event you've handled?
The coolest event,
Yes,
meaning,
in the restaurant industry or anything. Just
chefs for farmers, I would say. I mean, if you're talking about like actual events, which we don't do a whole lot of, we're more media relations, but we do PR for festivals, food and wine festivals. And that one is an incredible beast of, 50, 60 chefs from local to regional to national. It's one of the more homegrown festivals that we started about a decade ago that went from a long table to a 3-day festival. So I'd say that's definitely one of the coolest, if not the coolest.
So tell me about a project or accomplishment that you consider to be the most significant in your career, beside the coolest event.
You're right. Two. One would be Bolsa, creating an image for a restaurant that was grown out of an idea of a couple guys that I met in college or that I knew in college. And we ended up being what it ended up being like, or I mentioned earlier, really an important restaurant that pivoted and that changed the dining culture here, the dining landscape here. But two, I would say recently, frankly, just I'm so proud of and excited about how we've really struggled through this pandemic together with our clients, and they're more like family and friends than they are clients. And as a team, I think we'll come out. I feel we've come out ahead personally and professionally.
Okay, so I'm sure as an entrepreneur, you are doing something that you enjoy for your business. And so, what is your definition of fun with your business?
When I get a great media hit, that's the biggest rush. When we've pitched and pitched and pitched and pitched, and maybe it's something we didn't really think was going to be a great win. On Monday, we pitched a new restaurant opening called Harwood Arms in the Harwood district. And it had been, the tricky part on that one was it had been announced, 6 months prior. So it wasn't new news.
Mhm.
And we were competing against others that were dropping news about Michelin star chefs coming to Dallas that were much bigger than ours. And through our relationship with the media and the way that we present our pitches, we were able to garner every single top publication in town to cover it. So that was huge.
Great. Well, one last thing, I'd like to congratulate you on being named one of the most influential businesses in DFW. It's a great
Thank you.
great accomplishment. And so that'll conclude the interview, I think. And hope you're doing well and stay strong through this pandemic.
Thank you, Nick. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
You too.